Hello and welcome to the podcast of myself, Matt Davey, and Connor Godfrey. In today's episode, we're joined by fellow Solent University students Wes Spearman and Henry Buxton, where we discuss what life is like at university in a global pandemic.
How would you describe life at uni this year, particularly, I guess, for you two guys? Because obviously you're Solent University and you're not living in Southampton. So how's that working out for you?
I mean, I think we're both quite different because I'm in halls. Well, I was meant to be in halls, and Wes, are you in like a house or something?
Yeah, I'm privately rented out to two others.
I mean, that's sort of better for you because you could sort of you could really move back because you're only in a household with other people, but it's just a travel ban, isn't it? When getting back.
Yeah, and it's a case of taking about 3 bags with me on the train as well, which is quite heavy to carry.
Yeah, that's the thing with me is that I could have gone back on the train or I could go back on the train, but it'd be a matter of taking like a massive bag back with all my stuff in.
Yeah.
And it still wouldn't be everything that I really need. It would just have to be like the bare essentials. So yeah, I would prefer to. I am waiting until my the travel ban's lifted to travel down. But yeah, it is kind of annoying because I do want to go back and be with my flatmates and things like that because part of uni is the social aspect. I know we're in our third year and we've had 2 years of it, well 2.5 because obviously halfway through the second year it was all a bit dodgy as well. But I just want to be with fellow uni students and be in the city that I'm studying in because when I'm here I feel quite detached and I can't concentrate as well because I'm at home. Whereas when I'm in halls and things like that and with other students and we've all got the same mindset that I can actually concentrate better and work better because I'm in the city that I'm studying in. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Do you think, obviously being at home, we kind of touched on it there, and when it comes to the uni work, do you think maybe, I don't know, perhaps it's like suffered as a result? Because I find that like when it comes to having to like do assessments and what have you, it's just quite lazy, more lazy than I would be when I'm at uni. I'm finding it more difficult to get motivated for it, really.
Yeah, I probably agree with that to some extent. Yeah, I mean, my house in uni is, I feel like it's just maybe just a little bit more focused because it is just me. I've got no real distractions going around. There's only usually one other in the house, so there's only two of us there anyway. So don't have my dad. We've got lodgers here as well, so we've got two people potentially staying here, which is fine. But it's just like I've lived in this house pretty much since birth, so 20 years pretty much. Probably tell from all the stickers on the bed in the background. Yeah, here it just seems a bit more. Right, I mean, house at uni is still relaxed, but it's just like, as Bucks said, living in the place where you're studying, it just sets you in that mindset of sort of, right, this is uni, this is work, this is studying. It's just, maybe a little bit psychological, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. Really, I mean, even though you sort of do your assignments in your room anyway. I mean, you can go into the library and go to study like in uni somewhere and do your assignments there, but it's the psychological aspect of like when you're at home, you're sort of like resting. You only come home for the holidays. You come home to relax and not really do anything, catch up with your family, see your pets, see your friends and stuff like that. So yeah, it is that psychological aspect of it's very different to being somewhere where you're used to working, where you're used to being with other students who are also working and stuff like that. You're all just sort of in the same mindset, so that helps a lot. But yeah, it doesn't. I seem quite detached at the moment, so when I do have to do like a lecture when I'm sat at home, it doesn't feel the same as having a lecture in Southampton. I don't know what it is. There is a mental thing, but I can't really explain it.
So I'm going to move on to fees now, which I guess is the I think my biggest problem with the uni. You're paying the same for a different amount of teaching. So my first question: should the uni give a discount?
Yes, 100%. Well, 100% they should give a discount, not necessarily 100% of the fees back.
It should all be free. It's all free. Give us 9 grand, we can spend it how we want.
But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, they have to. I mean, I know my dad said that the government have stopped fees increasing for next year's and years on, so they're going to stay at 9,250. They're not going to go up. But like, what help does that give those currently at university, especially like us in our second and third years? It's just, I mean, we're going to be in however many £1,000s worth of debt anyway, but reducing them to something like in line with, say, the Open University, which is essentially what we're doing now. It's all online. We use our own technology and stuff. Yeah, even by half, because we have, but that's pretty me, Buxton, and Matt. We've all had some sort of in-person teaching. We've all been on campus at some point for our news days, but even so, that's just one day a week. If you literally 4 or 5 hours a week, compared to, I think we've got 15 hours teaching time a week now. So it's a third of that. So they should logically reduce fees by a third. That's my thoughts anyway.
I do think there's an overwhelming majority of students who will say that there's a discount. But I think if you go from course to course, each person will have a different viewpoint. Because I think that these students that are, in medical, I mean, I've spoken to a few medical students, and they're pretty much doing the exact same thing. I mean, it's obviously harder because they're probably dealing with COVID patients more than anyone. But I feel like different courses have had different things, because I know some of my mates from that I lived with in the first couple of years, they were completely online this year. So I feel like they have an argument to actually have their fees mostly refunded, because it has been all online, whereas us as sports journalism students, we have been in a little bit, but when we have been in, it hasn't been to the standard and quality as we would have done in previous years. So when we're there in the news days, we're only allowed 9 people rather than 40, 50 people in that newsroom. We haven't got that newsroom experience. So how do you expect us to pay fully for that experience when we're not getting it? Somebody's going to apply for a job at ITV, get there on the first day, there's going to be 100 people in that newsroom, and they're going to panic because they've never been in that sort of situation before. Whereas if we have been with those 50 people in our year on a Friday for the full day, hustle and bustle of getting the news stories out, TV, radio, writing news stories and everything like that, when we get into that environment, it won't be alien to us. Whereas now, it is alien to us. And I feel like that's should be compensated in a way that the fees get paid back.
And so just coming off on that purely from a Solent perspective, with all the facilities we've got, as you say, the newsroom, the Mac labs, the radio studios and the Hatch, we're paying that £9,250 and we get access to all of that. Whereas now, especially in this second term, at least for the next 5-6 weeks, we don't have access to that. We don't have access to the cameras, the studios, the computers, some people the editing software, Final Cut Pro. We don't have access to that. So why should we pay full price for a service that we're not fully getting, if that makes sense?
That I feel like on our course, it's just that whole, we get the equipment and now so the equipment's awkward to get, or we can't get the equipment because we're not in Southampton. But I feel like I'm going to say an upside to this now, is that especially on our course, if we can produce really good quality radio, TV, web stories and things like that, and create that in a pandemic, then they could think that employers look at us and go, what can they create when we're not in a pandemic, when we're not struggling to find stories and things like that? So that is an upside to it, is that we can prove that if we can create stories in this situation, then that's a positive. But it's not going to be to the best quality of what we can show, and that's where it's going to be hard to get employment this summer and beyond, really.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit here, and I'm just going to sort of say another side of it, and I just want to get your guys' reaction. The government, but not the government's, the university's argument sort of maybe back from giving fees back or some sort of discount will be they're not doing well for money at the moment, they're making redundancies. Where will that money come from in terms of obviously they're still paying all their staff, all the rent for the buildings, all the maintenance. They're also not getting the money from the cafeterias and shops and things like that. So I just wondered, what would you guys, where would they get that money from?
Well, I mean, yes, universities obviously have to make money, but that's not necessarily the fault. It's not the fault of the students, because the students are essentially paying this money to. They're paying for a service, and if they can't get that service, then they shouldn't be paying for it, or at least paying as much for it. And the government, either in September or at the start of this year, were urging students to go back to their accommodation. And then in November we had that lockdown, so they locked us down for a month to stay in our accommodation. So so people are still getting their money. The students still have to pay rent at accommodation, especially first and some second year staying in uni-owned halls of residence. So they're still getting money in that way. Obviously, for me, in a private rented accommodation, it's a little bit different. But unis still are getting their money, and I think it's not just unis that have suffered. It's all businesses, especially in like the hospitality sector and small businesses, especially. Everyone's suffering. It's not just universities. But I'm not an not an economist by any standard, so I don't really have a solution, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't really know where I stand on this, because obviously, yeah, they are a business at the end of the day and they need to get money. But surely, with the students not being there, they don't actually need to have these shops and stuff open, so they don't need to pay the money to run this, so they can strip that back. And then the money that they take off students. I mean, if you look at every single student that walks through the halls, walks through the Spark, walks through everything, each of those students are paying 9,000 and a bit each year. And you add that all up, that's a hell of a lot. I mean, let's say that they're doing redundancies and that it's in debt, but the amount of money that they must get per year is extortionate. Surely a little bit of a percentage off is not going to hurt that much. If you look at everybody, even if everybody paid £6,000 a year, you go round, that's a lot of money. So I feel like if they take the cutbacks that they need to, so at the moment nobody's going on campus, they can shut all the cafes, they can make people, the people that work there, maybe offer them other jobs and stuff like that to go somewhere else for now, because they're just not needed. I mean, the only thing we need to fund is, the electricity for the library, because apparently that's still open, and that's about it at the moment. So I feel like they can make cutbacks, but they're sort of, using the students as going, oh, well, you still need to pay because we need to keep the lights on. But then again, unis wouldn't be a thing without students. So if they lose us, then they lose their whole income in the entirety of it. So if they show themselves as a uni and prove themselves as a uni and go, you know what, look, we'll give you a discount, then that could attract future students, and then they can make their money back in the long term. So surely that would be a better option.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's a good answer. So we've spoken about the uni and the uni's fees, and I don't think it's that likely they are going to give a discount, if I'm being totally honest. Should the government be doing more? You mentioned the private accommodation. Should they be saying to the landlords, well, these students aren't even there for a lot of the time? Should they be paying the full money?
I think with private accommodation, I don't think that's got too much to do with the government personally, because it is as it is private. So I'm paying, was it 367 a month? It's 1,100 between three of us. And our landlord's in Canada, so we don't have an awful lot of communication with them. It all goes through the agency, and to be honest, I don't think they really care that much, to be honest. Yeah, we've had hardly any communication at all. But that's nothing to do with the government. That's just to do with us. Well, me and my two housemates as tenants, the letting agency that we're with, and the landlord. And I think us three have actually been fortunate enough to receive a decent amount of maintenance loan to actually be able to pay the rent. Which is, I mean, when I signed up to stay on at the house for another year back in August, so we had no idea that this was going to happen, any of this. I mean, yes, we we're not staying there, but we still signed an agreement to stay there for another year, and so what can we really do? I mean, with, I suppose, university-owned stuff, maybe the government should get a little bit more involved. With private stuff, I don't think there's that much need for them to, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in private halls, so I'm not in a house. I'm in halls. I'm not going to name drop because none of this is their fault, but they do have contracts. They're a business again. They're a business at the end of the day. They need the income. You signed a contract to pay that income. It's not their fault that the COVID's happened. They haven't, caused it. So I think that we didn't really expect. I know we sort of signed the contract knowing that COVID was still going to be knocking about come December, January maybe still. So it's our commitment that we've got to do that. But we've got to sign somewhere. We've got to live somewhere in Southampton if we're studying there. So it's sort of a catchment in a way. But the contract that I signed, the only way that we get money back or money discounted is if our course is completely cancelled, not online. Not just completely stripped back to online classes, completely cancelled. And that's where the fine print comes in, is that we can't get our money back unless our course is just called off and they go, you know what, come back next year and we'll start afresh. So that's where that sort of contract bit comes in. But yeah, I think that the government can get involved with university driven halls of any company, even if it's actual university halls like Solent halls or private halls around Southampton or anywhere in the country for that matter. The government do need to step in and give somewhat of a discount, even if it's just like the final term or the final semester, because I've currently paid out 2,000 and a bit for this coming semester, and I'm not even there. So that's £2,000 that I've just burnt. And it's like, I'm currently not there, but I want to go back. That's the thing. And currently there's a travel ban and, there's a lockdown, so I can't actually go back. But I'd happily pay the money if they would allow people to go back. I know they want to keep people apart, and they say that uni students are being blamed for spreading the virus around. But the thing is, we want to be with the people in our flats. We're not going to go anywhere. All we're going to do is be in our flats and then go shopping and come back and study. That's all we want to do. I mean, I know that staying at home is the safest thing, but when we're 20, 21, 22, 23, I know there's the students that are, coming into their 30s that just don't really want to be at home anymore, and they want to be living in the place. I know that some people, live alone now if they're getting older, but I know there's some people who have gone back home 24, 25, and they don't want to be living at home anymore. So that whole point of getting out, being independent and stuff is a massive thing of being part of a university student and growing up. So that has been detrimental in a way. But yeah, I think that the government do need to step in and give some sort of discount to any halls, be that university or private. I'm not sure about houses and landlords, and I know they're kind of a separate thing, but I do think with halls, the government do need to step in.
Just coming off off the back of that, government need to get involved in some way. All they've told us students is that we are the problem, pretty much, and they've just told us to stay at home, do your course online, and that's about it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, if they said that we could go back to private accommodation halls wherever we're living for uni, then it wouldn't be so bad, I suppose. But it's just to be told, stay where you are. You can't access facilities on campus. The only courses that are going to have any on-campus teaching are those medical related, social work related, things like that. Everyone else has to just go it alone, do it online, use your own facilities, which some of the poorer people going to university won't necessarily have, or at least good enough Wi-Fi and laptops to be able to do calls like this over Zoom or Teams or what have you. But something needs to be done, because all Prime Minister has said about tuition fees is we'll look into it. That's not a lot of comfort for us students. So yeah, we'll look into it. Don't you worry. We've frozen it for the late years. That's fine, but yeah, it's just not a lot of help. really.
Generally think university and higher education is one of the things that just has come up the least, if not, if at all. It's the one of the things that just keeps on getting avoided and avoided and avoided. And it's because we're either just segregated going, oh, you're on your own, you're becoming an adult, just get on with it. And also the fact that this just is apparently not an important part. It's such an important part. We're the future of this country, and yet you're letting us down. I mean, at this point, I want to emigrate to another country because they seem to, be getting other things right. And obviously, I think a lot of people will be wanting to, not be a part of this country and part of this economy anymore. So you're detrimenting the future of this country by segregating out a generation that can be part of this country's future, especially moving forward past, being out the EU and stuff that a lot of us didn't want. It's not really fair anymore. So the last few years of us as a generation have not been great. So, it's they're putting us on a pedestal and we're going, look, there's nothing's really our fault. I mean, we're just trying to get through an education here, and you've messed us up by getting us out the EU in the future, and you're not giving us an opportunity to have a good education. So who's in the wrong? Not us.
Kind of hinted at it already, but the quality of teaching, and for us in any case, 99% of it has basically been online. How would you sum up the quality of teaching, really? Obviously, it being online, perhaps about naming names, if there is perhaps a lecturer that you feel really hard done by about, not that there necessarily would be, but even the technology, even a Zoom call or a Teams meeting, you might have the odd lecturer that wouldn't even know how to start one or encounter issues, just little things like that if it's an hour lecture. But yeah, for you guys, how would you describe kind of the quality of teaching, really?
I mean, I'm not going to name drop any names because that's not fair. But there is a range of teachers who are better, and there are some lecturers who are not as good. I'm not saying they're bad; they're just not as good. I think there's some teachers have embraced it and gone with it and actually provided decent lessons and decent things, because you know how hard it is to concentrate on some lectures, especially early morning when you've just got up at 9 a.m. You're not in somewhere where you have to sit down and literally listen to somebody. You're in your room, your bed is a foot away from you. You've got like anything you want, you can easily just press the button, your camera's off, your mic's off, you could easily just lie down. As provided it's a lecture and there's not really much interaction, you could legitimately not be there, especially when your course is full of people, like 40, 50 people. If you're not there, you can think, oh, they're not even going to realize that I'm not there. For 50 people, 49 people, it's not going to matter. So there are ways out, but I feel like there are sort of some upsides to the online teaching. I mean, I feel like it comes on a student by student basis. If you have a strategy that works for you on concentrating on online calls, on work that's online, going off to do a task like breakout rooms or whatever, and coming back, then you need to adopt that into your education and use that to produce good work and actually get a productive lesson. But if you're one of those students who sits there, doesn't listen, mic off, camera off, just halfway through the lesson thinks, I'm not interested, gets off, then you're obviously not making the most of something that just has to happen. You go, oh, this online thing's rubbish, I'm not going to concentrate well. You're actually ruining that little time that you need to actually get something out of it. If you think sometimes I think that lectures that are online are going to be exactly the same as in person. All they're doing is saying things to you. All you need to do is just listen. If anything, it's a benefit that you're there because you can sit in your, nothing underneath. You can have just one thing on, and then the moment it's done, if you've got notes or anything or it's recorded, you can watch it back. And you're back in your room. You can go and get a coffee. You can go and get your lunch. You can go back for a nap. I mean, it's actually a benefit to be in your halls and have things online. So yeah, I think that the quality of teaching, some teachers have enthralled it and actually done well, and I quite enjoy some of the online classes, but there are some teachers who do need to, have some sort of talk with other lecturers or just sort of plan their lessons out better, because it is different. And for the moment, for the foreseeable future, this is going to be what happens, be it for the rest of this semester, be it for the next semester, be it for the next year, 2 years even. So they need to start now with getting lessons more interesting, lessons more engaging, lessons better. Otherwise, the grades for everybody and the enjoyment for everybody and the student satisfaction is just going to be on a downhill spiral.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 9 a.m.s. We don't really mind doing doing those so much. Just getting out of bed at 8:45, turning the laptop on, and launching Teams or something. Yeah, that's actually been, I suppose, one of the benefits of all this online stuff. Yeah, lectures themselves, I don't think they've really been affected that much, as Buxton said. It's when you go to a lecture in Spark, say what have you, you just got the lecturer at the front with a PowerPoint on, and you can do that on Teams and Zoom. You can just share the screen, share the PowerPoint, and listen in. I think the only things that are worse with lectures online is sound quality and video quality, because it's not there in person. But those are the only downsides. Again, seminars, I don't think they've been affected too much, because think back to what we've done before. It was we were just sitting in a classroom in groups or what have you, doing, like, usually in some cases last year, everyone just listening to the tutor talk for 3 hours pretty much. I think Buxton knows which one I'm on about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can still do work online, group work online. Zoom Teams, we've got breakout rooms, we can share our screens. Have things like Google Docs, we can all write on the same page together. And yeah, it just works, to be honest. I think some of the more practical units have suffered a little bit, but even so, the commentary unit this year I thought ran really, really well. And yeah, as you say, some teachers have embraced it more than others, and again, won't name names. But yeah, I think those teachers that have embraced it, their units run almost as well as they would do in person, to be honest. But yeah, some teachers who are perhaps a little bit hazy with technology, again, it's just a little bit not that engaging, whether it's the unit or the actual teacher themselves is it's up for debate. Yeah, I think any lecturer, tutor, they have to have some sort of training on technology. They have to get their technology up to some sort of standard, especially in the modern age we're living in now. Everyone uses laptops, everyone uses phones. There's a lot more stuff done online, especially in this pandemic. Everything's done online. But yeah, quality of teaching, again, is perhaps not quite as good as in person, but then a lot of it, for me, hasn't really changed, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I think for the sports journalism side of things for us, I think on the whole it's been pretty good, really. And it has been engaging. I think it has shown actually the lecturers, they do care and they want to do it. Aside from that, again, without naming names, and I think you guys know, I think you two have had this lecturer, Godfrey, you're going to have him, that's kind of away from the sports side of things. It's actually shown that they can be pretty useless.
You're narrowing it down, Matt. You treading on thin ice there. You treading on thin ice there.
Watch us get sued next week.
But it's true, because I think, you don't necessarily, you don't always, I think you expect the basics, right? And when they don't get delivered, when you're supposed to have a 3-hour session and it gets reduced to like a 15-minute slot, and then they don't turn up for that 15-minute slot for a few weeks in a row, and then you go like 3 weeks and you've not chatted to them, how are you supposed to care? But yeah, I think that has been the worst side of it for me, because I think you can see with certain people how good it is, with others, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I was thinking with like lectures and seminars as well, that student engagement's a big thing. I think with lectures and seminars, if you need to like answer a question or ask a question or like sort of get involved, but all being in a room together, it's easily to just go, that somebody can go, what's your question, or can I have help and stuff like that. But when it's a lecture and there's 50 people in a call and your seminar that somebody wants to ask you a question, I feel like it's harder to do that in a way. It's harder to be like singled out and try and get attention and try and ask a question. So I feel like that's one detrimental thing for seminars and lectures. But then again, I think just a lecturer doing a PowerPoint and talking about a single subject, that's what happens in lectures anyway. So yeah, there's not much difference there.
You guys especially are working towards your final major project. I know Dave has already done his, and it's something I'm going to do next year. Obviously, with the times, it's become slightly more difficult to do stuff. Is it fair that we're still expected to film such a lot of stuff when with the current circumstances?
It's annoying, that, isn't it? I mean, I'm sort of glad that at the moment, I mean, in the third year, in one semester you do radio, and in the other semester you do TV. And we did TV, us three did TV because we're in the same group. And even that was hard. And now the TV lot, they're doing it now during a lockdown, and when lockdown doesn't know when it's going to end, and they're not allowed to be in Southampton, can't get a camera kit, can't get anything. I genuinely don't know how they can do it. I mean, with us, radio is going to be fine because we could just hop on a Zoom call with somebody and talk to them, interview them, and that'll be our radio story or stuff like that. And we've got the quality. I mean, they're not grading us down on the quality of the audio at the moment, because I know a lot of people have different variables in their quality of audio devices. But I feel like I think if we were doing TV this semester, honestly, I don't know how we would cope, because it is literally going to be near enough impossible to, film things and things like that. So they'd have to probably create something, get everything from PA, maybe some interviews on Zoom, and that's about it. So it's not really highlighting what people are capable of, because I know that some people could get something somewhere, go and film it, show their camera skills, show their editing skills, and produce a brilliant piece of TV. And we just can't do that in a pandemic. I remember watching Sebastian Zani, his table tennis thing. I thought, blooming out, that's amazing, but nobody can replicate that right now. So there's going to be a long time before somebody can produce a piece of TV that good again. So that is quite detrimental. But I mean, if we can produce something, like I said, I said this before, but if we can produce something of really good quality in a pandemic, what can we do not in a pandemic?
Yeah, I watched Tev's piece as well, and just think there's no way anyone could produce that this year, because first of all they went to Germany to film for 2 days, so there's no hope of doing that now. And yeah, even for my own project, obviously it was due last week. I was hoping to move back to Southampton and use kits from the house to go back and film football at Oxford City, which obviously wasn't able to do. But I think I've been very, very, very lucky in that I'm actually doing some sort of part-time media stuff at Oxford City now, so I've been able to use their footage. But even so, yeah, I've been very lucky. But yeah, I think people who were hoping to film in January as part of the video project, I mean, there's not a lot they can do. And yeah, our tutor said the other day, just do your best. So hopefully they will take into account that people might not necessarily have been expecting this lockdown and for unis and schools to shut completely, that we can't go out and film our own stuff. Yeah, it's annoying. And as Buxton said, we're again very lucky to have done TV in the first semester, where uni was at least somewhat open and we could go out and film, still do Zoom interviews. But yeah, how the TV lot are going to manage this term is I don't even know. I don't even know how they're going to do it, because you can use your phones, but people are all over the country, so it's hard to go out and film at a place, especially when the only sport that's going on is pretty much football. It's elite football. Well, I say elite, but from the National League Premier above. That's the only real thing that you can go out and film. And then you've got to get into a situation of asking athletes, sports people to film themselves, and then they might not get the shots that you want, and it's just it's just. But then what can they do? I mean, you're doing a TV unit and you can't go out and film, so there's not an awful lot of wiggle room, I suppose. Sort of gone off on a bit of a tangent here, to be honest. For final major project, I think that was mainly about with the FNP, the actual sort of bulk of our degree, if you like. Fortunately, I don't think you need to do an awful lot of filming for that. You need to get interviews, but even those you can scrape through by doing them over email, because it's all writing. It's all like a portfolio of articles and stuff. But even so, I was lucky enough to. I mean, you can still do Zoom interviews. You don't need to go out and film anything for an FNP, which again is actually quite handy. You can do phone calls. I managed to find a way of recording phone calls on my laptop using the little app on my phone, link it up to the laptop and do it that way. So I don't think the FNP will be affected that much. But given it's the bulk of our degrees, it's the main thing that's I don't remember how much of our degree is worth, but it's worth quite a bit. So hopefully they will take into account somewhat the effect of the last few months and this lockdown. But yeah, just got to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I went off on a bit of a tangent about TV and radio, and you asked about final major project. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, I think that final major project is a writing module. I mean, there's dissertation where it's like work, like a whole article or whatever, and then final major project is sort of 3 or 4 articles. So all when they do it, if it's like a feature about something, or we're trying to investigate something, Zoom calls and FaceTime calls and things like that will all work fine, because you'll get the quality that you need. If anything, that a lot of people have said that in this pandemic and having things that you can do online and Zoom, people are actually easier to contact now and get Zoom interviews, because nobody's doing anything unless they're an elite footballer that are still training, still doing that. You can get elite cricket players, you can get elite rugby players at the moment. They're not really doing anything. So, I mean, you could probably get a hold of all of those tennis players that are in Australia at the moment. They're locked in a room quarantining. They're probably the easiest sports people to contact at the moment, because they'll be happy to do an interview. They want to get out of the cycle that they're in at the moment. So yeah, I think people have become, even though the world's so spread apart now and we're all so distant and stuff like that, it can bring us closer. And people are, I don't know what it's called. Is it six degrees of separation or something? 7 degrees of separation, where further 6 people away from people. Now it's 1 or 2 people, maybe even just one person that you can get to. So yeah, that is a good thing, that you can sort of contact anyone, because nobody's really doing anything. But then again, the amount of interviews you could do in person and meet people and just talk about things to create a whole like feature piece would be so much better. So yeah.
Okay, we kind of hinted at it earlier, but again, with the online teaching, 3 out of the 4 of us here graduate in just a few months. Do you think that, obviously it's out of everyone's control, but the online teaching, is that really setting us up for the working world once we graduate?
I mean, I've touched on this, haven't I? I mean, I don't think it has. I mean, I think that unless COVID is a thing that's, going to last 2-3 years, and, this is what we're just going to have to get used to for the next 2-3 years, then no. But if it is, then, well, yeah, because we'll be able to, take all the skills that we have learned from doing stuff online into the workplace and things like that. But like I said before, if we get a job at ITV and we're put into a newsroom on a Monday morning, to get news stories, and we just haven't experienced that, it's going to be completely alien to us. So it's going to be a bit different. But I feel like the skills that we learn, the skills that we know to go to a job at the moment, I think we should be fine. because that's just what we do. We create stuff, we write stuff, we create video, we interview, we create packages, montages, everything. We post on social media. We use social media all the time. That's a massive thing. You don't need to really learn that in this generation or be worried about doing extra on that. But I think it will be different, but it's just what you have to deal with at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think some of if we wanted to go into like camera work or radio work, then I think those skills might be not as well sharpened. I mean, that's a pretty rubbish analogy, but hopefully that makes sense. But we haven't been using cameras for the best part of 2 months now, so some people might need a refresher. And to be honest, I don't think we're going to be able to use cameras for the rest of our time at uni, at least this year. So yeah, people who want to go into, as I say, camera work, perhaps aren't going to be as well prepared as those who want to go into writing or something like that. But I think with the industry as it is now, it's all adapted. Everyone's doing Zoom interviews. You see it on TV, BBC, ITV, Sky, what have you. Everyone's doing Zoom interviews. I think even obviously you guys know I'm a massive cricket fan. BBC Test Match Special. They weren't allowed into Sri Lanka for the recent Test series. They banned all media at the ground. So they did it from the UK all over Zoom. They had people in different studios. I think the main host was in his attic on Zoom. They all had their professional headsets and stuff. But to put a production like that together all online with just a TV screen to commentate on, I think that's absolutely incredible. And that's the way that the industry's just changed and adapted over the last few months. And I think some of those changes are here to stay, especially the online stuff, the working from home stuff. That's going to be a much bigger thing, I think, for the next few years at least. COVID probably isn't going to go away completely. It's a virus. I don't think humanity's only been able to eradicate one virus. So COVID's here to stay, sort of like the flu, for some degree. Being in the media, we are quite lucky in a way that the industry we're going to get into, it's always changing, it's constantly adapting, and there's not just one set way of doing things. You don't just go out, get a camera, film an interview. We can do all that stuff online, and with one of these, with a phone, the quality on a phone is almost as good as a camera these days. So we just all have it there in our pocket. And with the way people have been used to things over the last few months, Zoom interviews, obviously the audio quality is not as good as doing it in person, but people have just got used to that. And I think the way that, well, for some of the units, we've actually been prepared quite well. Obviously, some units better than others, as we alluded to before. But I think we're still going. We'll still be able to go into the industry with some degree of preparation as to what to expect. As Buxton said, those news days, they might become, as you said, a little bit alien at the start if we do go into that sort of newsroom environment. Even so, in the first year and a half, we still have some experience of what it's going to be like, I suppose.
Yeah, you were talking about like quality of things before, like with the, we can obviously film on our phones and film on good cameras, but we're not going to have that sort of, BBC News, they always go out and, they have the lanyards and the opportunity for people to come up to them and speak to them, and, the big cameras that produce really high quality shots and that. But one of our main criterias on TV and like sort of video production is that our piece should be broadcastable. And now, because everyone's using Zoom calls and everyone's using their phones, everyone's using these things, we can use that and produce a thing and go, what, I could see that on BBC News today or The One Show or something like that. I mean, it sort of closed the gap between what professional broadcasters can produce and what students can produce. So I feel that's good in a way that we can produce stuff that's, not great quality, but because everyone's using it at the moment, it is broadcastable. So I feel like that's a good side to using Zoom and being able to use our phones for things like that now.
Yeah, and sort of Buxton, what you said earlier, if we can produce good quality videos, audio packages in this pandemic, then that surely says something to future employers that, right, this is what they can do when they're limited by technology. What can they do when they have access to proper cameras, proper microphones? It just says something, I suppose, about what people can do in these last few months. If we're able to produce something good, then that surely says something about the quality of those of the journalists, I suppose.
Yeah, especially on our course, I think that's that's the main silver lining, isn't it? I can't think of any other courses off the top of my head, but with our course, it's sort of like, yeah, what can they do when it's not a pandemic, when they've got all the quality of the pieces that you can use, all the technology that you can use to produce a good piece. So yeah, I think that's the main silver lining and the main point for our course, especially in journalism and that.
In hindsight, do you regret sort of going straight on to the third year, knowing what you know now, or would you defer if you could do it again for a year?
I'll go first because I've got an idea. I mean, simple answer: no, I would not defer. I'd go for this course. I feel like having a break in between, your second year and your final year, when you need to be on your top of your game. I feel like having a whole year off, especially in these times when everything's a bit hectic and you're not really thinking about education, you need to be completely in that education mindset, and it's hard enough as it is being at home and having to work. You do uni work at home. I feel like I don't really regret it at all. I mean, I've signed up to do 3 years in a row. I've signed to graduate, signed up to start in 2018 and finish in 2021. That's what I signed up for at the start. I mean, no one could foreshadow. In hindsight, nobody could foreshadow the pandemic. I mean, if back in 2018 I went, oh, there's going to be a global pandemic in 2020, I better not start uni. I mean, that would be great, but it's happened. It's here. It's here to stay. And no, I don't regret starting uni. I would not defer at all because you don't know how long this is going to last. If I did go into 2020, oh, you know what, I'll go a year off. Come January now, the Matt Hancock and Chris Whittier say that this could be carrying on till even this time next year. I mean, I remember a behavioural secretary was saying that at the current rate and the current way that people are acting, even this time next year, we might just be getting out of it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't regret starting again. It's part of my education. I don't want to be a year off my education. Even the gap year between college and or sixth form into uni is bad. So I can't imagine, taking a year off in the middle of my course, to not do anything at all. I mean, a study one would be all right, but you can't go abroad to study anywhere or study anywhere else at the moment with good quality. So, no, a simple answer. After all that, no, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I don't regret it either. To be honest, as Bex said, you signed up to do 3 years, and here I am now in my final year, and I've to be honest, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Actually, this year it's been different, and towards the back end of last year, it's been different. And yes, to some extent, the quality of teaching hasn't quite been as good as first year in the first half of our second year, but we've still got a decent education. I think it's just the lack of facilities and not being able to use facilities at uni, which for me is why they should reduce fees somewhat. But yeah, as I say, I've just thoroughly enjoyed these 3 years, and even I think this year as I say, it's been different, but then that then gives us a somewhat different set of skills to go out into the industry and say, look, we can do this. We've done a little bit of sort of practical journalism, going out to places, filming stuff, interviewing people in person, but now we can do all that, but online as well. And it's would we be in a better position without this pandemic? Yes, probably we would in terms of our skill set. But this just gives us a slightly different set of skills to go out into the industry and show what we can do. Yeah, no, I don't really regret not being able to defer. I just don't really know what I'd have done with a year off, to be honest. To getting a job and some money in would be nice, but I think, yeah, I don't really know what I'd have done, because uni, it gives you something to focus on, and if it's a course you love doing, which, as I said, I've really enjoyed my time at Solent. If it's something you love doing, then you're not going to stop doing it. To take a year out, as Buxton said, in what will be our final year, to just break that up in what is theoretically the most important year at uni. I just don't get why people do it, and I'm not sure if anyone on our course has actually deferred a year. I'm not. Some people might have, but I don't know. I just feel a bit sorry for those just starting uni, to be honest, because obviously they're expecting, or perhaps they weren't expecting when they joined up in September, but they were hoping for a somewhat normal university life, be able to go out, socialise, go bars, pubs, what have you, meet other people, and they're not going to be able to do that for certainly the rest of this year. With the start of their second year, to be honest, in September of 2021. It's just been a different experience, and the main point of university is education. Are we still getting an education? Yes, not to the same degree, but yes, we are still getting an education. So after that bit of a tangent, no, I don't regret not deferring.